Well, hello my book loving friends, welcome or welcome back. Obviously, as evident as the booktuber I am, I love reading and spend a fair amount of time doing so. But back when I was a wee little one, I would have rather spent my time creating stories with my Barbies rather than reading them. Still, multiple times my mom dragged me either to the bookstore, the library. I even have memories from when Borders was still around, RIP Borders. So probably all thanks to my mom, I did, when I was younger, end up reading an adequate amount of children's books. Today we'll be going down nostalgia lane, back to the good old days when all we had to worry about was whether we wanted mac and cheese or chicken nuggets for dinner, and revisiting some childhood books, and then I'll be recommending some books to read nowadays based off of your childhood favorites. I have an array of recommendations here today, so hopefully there's something for everyone. Except I don't think I have a nonfiction, so sorry to all my scholars out there. I gotta start with a quintessential classic. Do y'all remember these? This series taught me how to read, which I actually did not know the official name of until I started planning for this video. These are the Mr. Men and Little Mrs. books. Sounds like a toddler beauty pageant. If these books are your favorite, I want to start off by asking if you're okay. I hope you're doing alright and got the therapy you deserved, because if these were your favorite, you're probably now an emotional girly. Each book in this series basically follows a character whose life is controlled by their one emotional or personality trait. Like, my man, that is not a healthy way to live. Where's the balance, am I right? So I want to recommend you something today that will boost your serotonin levels to keep morale high, such as the To All the Boys I've Loved Before trilogy by Jenny Han. These books are so wholesome and will leave you grinning like a silly little child. This is a YA romance that follows our girl Laura Jean, and growing up, whenever she had a crush on someone, she would pour all of her feelings into a love letter, but then never send it. No, she would keep all of these letters in a box in her closet. But one day, her secret letters get mailed, surprising, and Laura Jean's love life goes from non-existent to out of control. Laura Jean is so cute, and even though she is a YA character, she's still relatable, and the story has a lot of heart to it. Jenny Han is the same author of the Summer I Turned Pretty trilogy, which I know everyone loves, but I feel like these books don't get the hype that they deserve. And I guess I can kind of understand, because even though I knew about these books and I'd watched the movies, I never considered picking it up until I heard someone rave about them. And I'm so glad I did. So if you have not picked up the series yet, this is your sign to do so. I feel like Mr. Men and Little Mrs. lovers need emotional stability, and these books are the perfect comfort read. Where are all my Geronimo Stilton fans at? Oh my gosh, that series was my bread and butter. It was my creme de la creme. If you don't know about these books, they basically follow this mouse, Geronimo, who lives in this anthropomorphic, mice-dominated world, and we basically follow him through all the shenanigans he gets himself into and the adventures he goes on. Now, from what I remember, there were at least 2 different versions of the series. There was the standard and then a spin-off where Geronimo went on these fantastical adventures. I remember getting so excited when a new book from the spin-off series was released, because whereas the regular series felt like reading a mouse sitcom, the spin-off was like an adventure mouse sitcom, which understandably really did it for me as a child. So specifically, if the spin-off Geronimo was your favorite, I feel like either Six of Crows or my other book. Okay, give me a second. Had to grab it. Ready Player One could give you that adventure story arc your inner child yearns for. Six of Crows follows this group of strangers who are brought together and tasked with this impossible seeming heist that requires them to break into a highly secured ice court and then get out unnoticed. This is a super fun read with rich friendships and a complex world and magic system. Ready Player One, I'll be talking about more in depth in my February wrap-up, but I feel like Geronimo lovers, Geronimoers, if you will, would really appreciate how the adventures in this book feel so real to us readers. There were so many challenges our protagonist had to overcome in here that was so captivating and provided an immersive reading experience that I loved, and I think other Geronimoers would love too. Sometime I do want to reread a Geronimo Stilton book just to see why I loved that series so much, because that series was a fundamental part of my childhood. If Frog and Toad was your favorite, hit me up. I want you as a best friend. You were a child ahead of your time. Frog and Toad is literally an aesthetic in itself now. Frog and Toaders know the true importance of friendships and relationships, so if that was you, you have to read Ghost by Dolly Alderton. Not only is this cover such a vibe in itself as well, but this novel explores relationships relationships and friendships with more of a nuanced lens. In this book, we follow Nina, a successful food writer in her 30s, and while all her past peers are settling down, getting married, having kids, she feels like she doesn't need a man to complete her, as she should. But nonetheless, Nina still has that same desire as many to find love, and after she goes on a first date with a guy named Max she met through a dating app, this possibility starts to seem not so far-fetched until Max drops off the face of the earth and ghosts her. So it seems like on the surface, the story is going to focus on the reasoning behind Max ghosting Nina, but it really dives into so much more and really draws upon the name by exploring the ghost of Nina's fading friendships and the ghost of who her father used to be before he got dementia. It's an absolutely stunning read, both on the outside and the inside. This next childhood series, I think, started my familial kleptomania. I remember picking one up one day, really liking it, and then deciding that the books were mine now. I was a bit unhinged back in the day. Still am, but not in that way. If Diary of a Wimpy Kid books were your favorite, sorry to break it to you, but it was also a million other kids' favorite as well. This series was, and probably still is, one of the most popular middle grade series. I was in Target the other day, and I walked by the children's book section, and I noticed all of the Wimpy Kid books I hadn't read, even though I was a diehard fan at one point in my life and read all of the books up until then. So if you were a Wimpy Kidder, you were definitely a child who tended to follow the crowd and always hopped on the current bandwagon at the time as a means of trying to fit in. Not me exposing my younger self. Sorry, Sarah. So I want to recommend something today that I'm predicting will be the next big book. Blood Sugar by Sasha Rothschild. Trust me, once the book talk girlies get their hands on this book, this will be the next silent patient. Mark my words. This book follows Ruby, who one morning is brought into the police station to be questioned for a murder she did not commit. How dare the police accuse her of murdering her husband? She is just an animal-loving therapist. Yes, she may have committed 3 other murders in her life, but she absolutely adored Jason. So as the details of Ruby's life that led her to that moment are examined, us readers are thrown into a moral dilemma roller coaster that may actually lead you to end up rooting for her. I remember binging Diary of a Wimpy Kid books in one night, and this is certainly a novel that will make you lose track of time as well. I have personal experience with that. This is not only one of my favorite reads of 2022, but also one of my favorite thrillers of all time. Since Diary of a Wimpy Kid follows a boy, obviously little girls needed their own version because it would be horrid if they read books about the other gender. That was meant to be sarcastic. Obviously, I read Diary of a Wimpy Kid. But to me, it has always seemed like someone just decided one day to make a girl version of Diary of a Wimpy Kid, and thus Dork Diaries was born. If Dork Diaries was your favorite book, you had, and probably still have, a lot of girl boss energy. You really went fuck Diary of a Wimpy Kid's girl power. So I wanted to recommend something with a strong female lead, but also bookish vibes to relate to how the protagonist in Dork Diaries was always writing in her diary. She was really a precursor of the next up-and-coming author. But Book Lovers by Emily Henry fits the bill perfectly because her main character Nora is a confident, strong female lead who works in publishing, specifically as a literary agent, and as the career-focused woman she is, she has not necessarily neglected her love life, but all of her previous boyfriends have dumped her for small-town girls, literally all of them. So she really hasn't had the best luck in the relationship department, but after begrudgingly going on a little vacation with her sister to Sunshine Falls, she runs into an editor whom she has previously brushed off as a prick, but over the vacation, after they keep getting thrown together again and again, Nora may actually end up getting a cliche romance such as the ones she once made fun of. If you fancied the Magic Treehouse, you were definitely either a rambunctious child and thus could really relate to the characters going on these adventures, or you were a wannabe adventurer and thus lived vicariously through the characters and their fantastical adventures. If you don't know about the Magic Treehouse series, you can probably assume that it involves a magic treehouse, and that would be a correct assumption, except the treehouse is more of a time machine than a magical structure, because each book in the series follows a brother and sister who travel back in time through the books in their treehouse. Does this plot sound familiar? I know, it's giving The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. This book should be called The Magic Library instead of The Midnight Library, you know, because Magic Treehouse. Magic library. Okay, that was bad. Never mind. In the Midnight Library, we follow Nora as she enters this magical library that is the state between life and death. And through the books in this library, Nora is able to try on different lives she could have had if she made different decisions in her life in order for her to be able to find the so-called perfect life. Even though I really do recommend this book, I feel like it's kind of a cop-out because it's such an obvious recommendation. So I want to also recommend another book as well, Before the Coffee Gets Cold, which I have not read, so this is not a hard and set recommendation yet, but I know that this book also plays with time travel and magical realism, so it's giving similar vibes as well. But instead of having a library as the vessel for time travel, this book has a coffee shop that allows customers to travel back in time for however long their coffee stays warm. If Bad Kitty was your favorite, you are probably a devil child. Bad Kitty is a series about a cat who in each novel just finds different ways to wreak havoc in their family's home. So you certainly were a little rebel and are now someone who at least has an edge to yourself that I think would enable you to relate to one of the characters in The Golden Couple by Greer Hendricks and Sarah Pekanen. Even though Bad Kitty is arguably a bit of a psychotic cat, I feel like they were just misunderstood. Just like how the therapist in this book is misunderstood by those who view her therapeutic practices as unorthodox, which actually is a bit understandable. She did lose her therapist license. Still, it doesn't stop her from counseling those in crisis, such as the bishops who stroll into her office one day, where it's quickly revealed that the wife hasn't been the most faithful, but that secret is minute compared to the bigger secrets that are yet to come. The way the therapist approaches life just reminds me a lot of Bad Kitty's character. The therapist in here is one of my favorite thriller main characters who I was fascinated by the entire time. I loved being in her head. She is iconic. Bad Kitty is iconic. Need I say more? I am about to take you back in time. Picture this. It is your 8th birthday, and for your present this year, your parents decide to take you to the American Girl store to buy your first American Girl doll. So you get there and are instantly mesmerized by all the pretty dolls and the cute accessories, and after a bit of indecisiveness, you decide to purchase a historical doll, who comes with a historical fiction novel that you and nearly every other child ignores. But let's just say for the sake of this video, you're part of the small minority who actually chooses to read it and ends up really enjoying it. And part of the reason you probably enjoyed it so much is that because you're reading about your new best friend. Your new best friend that is embodied by this doll, yes. This scenario reminds me a lot of an author who always writes me new fictional friends. Let's give it up for none other than Taylor Jenkins Reid herself. If anyone can get me emotionally attached to characters, TJR can. Also, most of her books are historical fiction, but if you want a novel that really takes you back in time, I'd say give Daisy Jones a try. Although this book wasn't my favorite out of all of hers, the writing really did make it feel like I was right there in the 60s with the characters. I've also heard great things about the audiobook version, and it sounds like it's even a more immersive experience since the narrator actually sings some of the songs written in the novel. So I definitely want to reread this book in that format sometime. But I also think that this book would be good for AG lovers since it's very character focused. If you don't like books that focus more on the characters than the actual story progression, just move right along. A tried and true, no plot, just vibes novel right here. Also, if you're a fan of reading the doll's novel and then watching the correlated movie, might I just add, in case you need any more convincing, that Daisy Jones is getting an adaptation. I'm very excited to watch that. If you loved Nancy Clancy back in the day, you most certainly now are a mystery and thriller lover, and especially have a soft spot for sleuth main characters. So if you're looking for something that has a Nancy-esque character, except made older, more mature, and male, you gotta try a Hercule Poirot Agatha Christie novel. But today I'm actually gonna be recommending my favorite novel from her, And Then There Were None. It's back there. I meant to grab it. Whoops. The picture's fine. I think this is a book that every mystery or thriller lover should read at some point in their life because it has inspired so many other novels. This is the ultimate secluded setting murder mystery novel set on an island where the 12 guests invited there start to dwindle one by one until then there were none. I bet Nancy Clancy would not be able to figure out this murder mystery. When I finished this novel, I was like, oh my god, Agatha Christie is a genius. The ending is so cleverly crafted. 1 fish, 2 fish, red fish, blue fish. Dr. Seuss, 1960. If you're a Dr. Seuss fan, you are definitely a quirky, not like the other girl's girl. And so I think you would really relate to B in Love on the Brain by Ali Hazelwood. B is truly a not like the other girl's girl. She rocks pink hair, is a diehard Marie Curie fangirl, and is one of the top in a dominantly masculine-centered field. We love to see it. This is an enemies to lovers romantic comedy that follows B after she is offered a job at NASA. And come on, who would turn down NASA, right? But on her first day, after a little accident she gets herself into, her knight in shining armor is there for the rescue, who she instantly realizes is her arch nemesis from grad school, and who she then later realizes is the same person she is co-leading this new NASA project with. Dr. Seuss books are by definition silly and wacky, so I felt like it was fitting to recommend a rom-com that is kind of absurd, but in the best way possible. And then finally, wrapping up with a classic, The Velveteen Rabbit. The first time I encountered this book, a teacher or someone was reading it to the class, and I just remember thinking, why are we reading reading this book. It is so sad. Are you trying to make 6-year-olds depressed? What especially pulled on younger Sarah's heartstring is how the little boy in the book got sick and then all of his toys had to be burned. I viewed that as the end of the world back then. So child me instantly didn't like that book because it was just so sad, which is kind of ironic because now I quite enjoy sad novels. This book I'm going to recommend, I want to recommend with a strong caveat for heavy trigger warnings that are very graphic in some parts. A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara. If someone I knew recommended me this book, I would definitely question why they would want me to read this, but the prose in this book, stunning. Hanya's writing makes you feel every ounce of pain or happiness these unique, complex characters experience. This is a book that you will truly never forget. Willem, JB, Malcolm, and Jude will forever live on in my heart. A Little Life is not a little novel. No, it is a thick boy. But it is also a poignant novel that basically follows these 4 friends through the ups and downs of their lives. If you really liked how The Velveteen Rabbit features hardship and uncanny friendship, read this. Or maybe don't. I'm still undecided if my conscience would be 100% okay with me recommending this to someone. Alright, that is all the book recommendations I'm going to be talking about today. I thought it was kind of fun to do a book recommendations video in this format, you know, to spice things up a little bit. Hopefully I covered today at least one of your favorite childhood books, but maybe not because there are a lot of books out there. Nevertheless, I hope you got a recommendation from this video. I'm really curious to know your guys' favorite childhood reads, so let me know down in the comments. If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up. It really does help me and my channel out a lot. You can also comment, interact, subscribe, all that fun YouTube stuff. I'd really appreciate it. I hope you all are having a fantastic day, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.